Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is your favorite daily real estate coaching and training podcast. We've got a great show for you today. Master your mindset 10 ways to defeat negativity and succeed in real estate. And it should be obvious, Julie, but why did we choose this as a topic for today's show?
Well, as coaches, we do from time to time hear about negativity sneaking into the lives of our podcast listeners, our coaching clients, their prospects, and certainly in the middle of deals. There's so many different places that negativity can sneak in, and it can really knock you out of control, at least for a while. It can mess with your mindset. It can then spin out, and then you're affecting everybody that you come into contact with. So this is a big topic. And we like to help you guys as much as possible with some techniques. We're going to go over maybe as many as 10 different techniques today. So we can either move quickly through these or they can get the rest of them from the newsletter.
Well, depending on what our mindset is, we will or won't get through all 10 points. Let's just leave it at that. But also, you're going to want these, Julie mentioned the newsletter, you're going to want these points. You're going to want all of our notes, and all of our notes are waiting for you over at Harris Real Estate Daily. HarrisRealEstateDaily.com is our daily newsletter, and that is indeed where you can get all of our notes for this podcast and for the thousands of others of past podcasts we've done. And also, Julie, I didn't tell you this. On the iTunes rankings, we continue to be consistently top 30 in the world, in our category, which does make us by far the #1 daily real estate coaching and training podcast. So
Awesome.
Thank you. It is awesome. Thank you for all of you for your continued support. And remember, if you are not listening to us daily, you're missing out. What the heck are you doing? Listen to this podcast every day. So let's get started, Julie. We're going to jump right in. And do you want to do your preamble, or you want to just go right to point #1?
Well, the intro is important because here's the thing. Real estate success does start between your ears. The average person has over 6,000 thoughts per day, but most of them are repetitive and many of them are negative. Left unchecked, this negativity can breed procrastination, burnout, missed opportunities. But the good news is that you can change your thinking and your trajectory starting today. Again, we're going to give you several techniques today. We've got 10 practical mindset shifting strategies used by our top producing coaching clients who stay focused, confident, and successful even when somebody throws some negativity their way. So ready to start with #1, Tim?
Yep, I'm writing something down, and we should have added this, the intro, but something you and I have been studying for another podcast. And really where negative thoughts, essentially everyone likes to talk about where negative thoughts really come from, or really what insecurity or lack of presence comes from. It really comes from uncertainty about the future. And if you have uncertainty about the future, and of course, when you're a business owner, that's what life is essentially filled with. You need to figure out ways to counterbalance that sense of uncertainty so you can be more present and less harebrained, frankly, and stressed over some of the things that are just normal parts of the day. Because if you are worried about the future, if you're uncertain about the future at a high level, it's going to cause you to naturally not take the actions necessary for you to essentially have a fantastic day, month, week, and all the rest of it. And I realize I'm talking about your point #1, Julie, but that's okay. So the moral of the story is, in our coaching and training programs, one of the first things we're going to have all of you guys do is put systems in place to remove your sense of uncertainty about the future. And what do I mean by that? A schedule, and drill down on what your daily activities should be, and drill it down in the sense that we're going to focus on numbers. So I have elite coaching clients, and I'm taking on elite coaching clients, as we've been talking about on and off the last week or so. And so one of the first tasks I have with these elite coaching clients is, after they get their business plan done, and part of the business plan, real estate treasure map, is getting their daily schedule done. And getting their daily schedule is going to, what the elements are of their daily schedule, the normal things you'd expect. But then when it gets to contacts or proactive lead generation, we're making that into a specific number. Now, why am I taking this such an analytical approach to it? Because that's what's going to give them the basis for the rest of their day, the rest of their weeks, their months, their years. The uncertainty that comes from being a business owner, just being a human alive, it can really cause a lot of procrastination, a lot of fear, a lot of misery, frankly. And so the daily schedule, when the foundation of the daily schedule is based on numbers that you can track, that actually removes the sense of uncertainty. Because at the end of the day, and this is what I told all of them, we've told you guys this on this podcast too, a really successful day comes down to 3 to 5 things that you've done at a very high level. And, we talk about all these on different podcasts and in our coaching programs, but one of them is the number of contacts, proactive lead generation contacts you made that particular day. And when you've done those 3 to 5 things every day at the highest level, you know that the momentum that you're building is going to result in a very positive outcome and certainly a wonderful future. Because if you're making, say, for example, 20 contacts a day, decision-making adults about selling their homes, and you do 100 a week, there is pretty much a 0.00000 chance, even if you're not very good at doing proactive lead generation, that you're not going to trip across a few listings and at least a few buyers, which means your financial future is going to be in a different direction. And where's this all go? Because you are then going to remove the sense of uncertainty about your future, thus screwing up your mindset. I mean, the uncertainty gives you a bad mindset. And you're going to replace it with, you know what? I know when I make this number of contacts, I'm going to set this number of appointments. I'm going to have this result. I'm going to make this amount of money. You guys see? So the only way ultimately, and we're going to go over some of the more finer points, but I'm just kind of putting an overlay on all these points. At the end of the day, the only real proven path to moving forward and removing the uncertainty from your life, removing a lot of the misery from your life, and having a really powerful mindset is to know that a really positive day comes down to doing 3 to 5 things at a high level. And those 3 to 5 things compound day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. Hopefully that makes sense.
Well, you're talking about the accumulation effect.
Right.
And I'm glad that you added that to our intro, because so much negativity and stress does come from that uncertainty. And I would say that's lack of control is like uncertainty, that sort of thing. And so your example of not just having a schedule, but following that schedule that is based on proactive lead generation, because that's where everything in real estate starts, gets you back into control. That way it's like your insurance policy against that negativity and against the stress of feeling out of control. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because the schedule conversation is never really that exciting for agents. They're like, oh, time management, of course you're going to talk about that. But in fact, it is the number one thing that gets you back into control and away from that uncertainty. So let me relate that to our point number one, is to label it and leave it. That's what we wrote down for that. Recognize and reframe those negative thoughts. And remember our 4 filters. So it might be, I feel like I'm going to go through the 4 filters, but they go, is your belief true? Am I certain it's true? Who am I when I believe this? And who could I be without this thought? So let's say that your belief is that real estate's out of control all the time for everybody. And, there's people that'll say that to you. Maybe that's your broker or another agent. Oh, it's normal to feel out of control all the time. So that's your belief. Well, then you ask yourself, is that really true? Or is it possible that I could be in control? Am I absolutely certain? Who am I when I believe this? Well, I'm feeling out of control all the time. That's who I am. I'm stressed. I'm putting my stress on everybody else. I'm freaking out all the time. Maybe I'm procrastinating. Who am I because I believe that? And then I would ask myself, who am I if I stop believing that? Maybe I'm a completely different person if I let that go and say, do what Tim said, follow an actual schedule that gets me predictable and duplicatable results. I'm a totally different person when I do that, when I embrace that. So those are the 4 questions. That technique is called label it and leave it. Labeling what I believe and leaving it because it's not working to my benefit. Does that make sense, Tom?
It does. I'm giving you thumbs up as I agree.
You found the reaction emoji button.
The reaction, yeah. Well, isn't that the thing though, Julie? All of our coaching clients, our elite coaching clients, your day is oftentimes where, like, say for example, you're not having a schedule and you haven't drilled down your day to a relatively easily managed small group of number of contacts. Obviously you went to the gym, you did the things. When you have a day that just basically is always about putting out fires and the latest drama and all the rest of it, that's what burns you out. That's what screws up your mindset.
Lack of control again.
Right. So what Julie and I coach agents to do, and this is all rooted in essentially human behavior, right? We're not trying to get you guys to do something that's not in alignment with how you're already hardwired, frankly. And so what humans must have, what all of us must have, is a sense that we're making forward progress. And when we don't get that sense of it, some people say making a contribution, you frame it different ways, but people want to feel like they're moving forward financially, physically, mentally, spiritually, educationally. They want to feel like they're progressing. That's the reason that you're going to watch the next episode of something, is because you're wanting to move forward. The reason that you go to the gym is because you want to move forward. You guys get it? So there's something innate in all of us that's designed by God that makes us want to move forward in our lives and improve at all times? Well, you have to game that, make that to your benefit. So if you have, for example, a day that goes completely haywire, hey, that never happens, right? But you know, in the morning, because that's really the only part of the day you really have to have rigidly scheduled. I'm sorry for using the word rigidly. We can soften that up if you'd like, but that's the only part of the day you really have to have a schedule. So your day goes crazy, your week goes crazy. You're sitting at Friday and you're going, oh my gosh, this is the most insane week ever. But you know, every single day you did the 5 things that you were supposed to do. You can rest assured that what you've essentially done is you have created an alternative path forward that will, because of the accumulation effect, will amount to something fantastic versus had you not done those 3 to 5 things you were supposed to do every day. And I know some of you, that is really what you needed to hear, because you're saying, I need to get back in control of my life. I need to find balance. I promise you, balance is impossible, but I promise you, if you just focus on that morning schedule where you get the things done every single day you're supposed to be getting done, that will have downstream benefits to your mindset, because even when it feels like the winds are completely against you, you're still going to know that this morning, today was a crappy day overall, label it however you will, but this morning I killed it at the gym. I made my 10 contacts. I showed appreciation towards other people. I prayed. I did the things I was supposed to do every single day. So even if the afternoon goes harebrained, even if your dog eats your homework and your kid, the whole thing, at the end of the day, you know what? I did what I was supposed to do. I'm proud of myself. And that's how you start to get in control of your mindset ultimately. Julie, let's put up, there you go. Reading your mind. Sorry.
It's okay.
All right. Practice persistence or
practice presence.
Presence. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So mindfulness beats mental mayhem. That's something to write down or highlight in the newsletter. The past is over. The future is a guess, but presence is your power. Now I have a little technique here. There's lots of different ways to make yourself be present. Some people, they have to catch themselves and just simply breathe 5 breaths just to catch yourself. But I wrote down one. Here's the action step. It's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. 5 things that you can see that you're grateful for. Maybe that's a blue sky or a beautiful bird on your bird feeder. 4 things that you can touch that make you happy. 3 things that you can hear. 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. Again, adjust for what works for you, right? So here's a quote. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf, right? So a lot of people say you can't, and I think it's true, you can't stop that first negative thought or that first stressful trigger. Maybe it's a voicemail or something that happens to you. You couldn't prevent that. I mean, you can try to prevent that by pre-qualifying crazy people out of your lives, but you can't get rid of all of it. But you can take control and be present in how you react to something. That makes a big difference. But the challenge, and I think you'll agree with this, Tim, the challenge is having the peace of mind in the first place to catch it and then say, okay, I'm not going to actually overreact to that. I'm just going to take the breath. I'm going to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, or I'm going to have just 3 breaths or 30 seconds of peace. Or maybe I go listen to my favorite song for, 3 minutes. It's the catching of it that's the key that you've got to train yourself to do. Would you agree with that?
Well, you're talking about a whole bunch of different things with the catching it aspect of it. And yes, I do agree with it. The catching of it, Julie, takes a lot of introspection and presence
Effort,
to your points, to effort. But so what Julie's drilling down is something that we talked, this is a really important element of personal development. So a lot of us will have triggers that will cause us to have reactions that in the future we won't be proud of that we had. It could be behavioral. It could be just frankly thoughts. It could be things that, that we are not in complete control of, and our higher selves will be embarrassed that you acted that particular way. And so where does that happen? And for all of us, basically it's triggering fight or flight. So when you have an experience with somebody or something, or you read something, let me take a sidestep. Avoid things that trigger that sense of fight or flight. There's a good place to start. Avoid those things. And a lot of us are addicted to them. And you guys have heard about the dopamine effects of doom scrolling and all the rest of it. But unfortunately, you might be actively participating in avoiding the triggers that cause you to go into a fight or flight mode, but everyone around you is not. So everyone around you is in a hyper aware state of unconscious, essentially craziness. Exactly. Where they're the ones that are going to be they are so emotionally detached from reality. They're going from one doom scrolling headline to another, to another, to another, and they're surrounded by people that are in those heightened states of fear, of fight or flight. And so, even if you are doing a great job of having a media-free life, when you're around other people, if they're not doing the same work on themselves, they're then going to most likely pull you back in. So you not only have to go media free, and media free is where you purge all forms of media, except for this podcast, of course. But you also then have to be consciously aware when you're around other people, especially the people that you know, love, and trust, because they're the ones that are going to immediately cross your emotional moat and get into your little kingdom. And because you're going to say, oh, after all, why would that person want to bring any sort of, calamity into my little emotional kingdom, right? I'm just going to lower the bridge and let them cross my moat. Well, those are the folks that sometimes, if they're not self-aware of the baggage that they're carrying, they're going to drop it off in your kingdom, and then turns out it's full of rats that had scurvy or some horribleness. Do you guys get the point? And then all of a sudden your mindset's all flutter, and they've passed along to you something you'd rather not have had in your life. So that means that you, to Julie's point, have to be monitoring how you're feeling around other people, not just people, but also around digital inputs. And maybe even around newspapers and whatnot, if you guys happen to know what a newspaper is. And the way it manifests in your body for most of us is when you're starting to feel the fight or flight thing. Some people call it ego. It could be called a bunch of different things. It usually manifests right around your mid-center of your body. And then what happens is you'll feel your energy level, your excitement, your fear level increase. And then usually what comes after that, because that's your fight or flight being triggered, usually what comes after that is not something that you're going to want to have manifest in your life. But if you're aware of it, so if you're around somebody and they just trigger you, you just don't like being around this person because they just are absolutely, you don't know what it is about them you don't like, but there's definitely something about them you don't like. Let's not psychoanalyze why you do or don't like them and all this other crap. Let's not focus on that. What I want you to focus on is not allowing yourself to be triggered by whatever that emotion is that you're picking up from them, probably subconsciously. Maybe it's their ego. Maybe it's something that they remind you of. Again, let's not waste time with all the psychoanalyzation of it. All that really matters is that you remove that trigger. Now, you have to deal with this person on a regular basis, so you can't remove that trigger. Hell, it might be a family member, might be someone in your office, might be someone in your team or your brokerage. But what you can do is you can start monitoring when you have that emotional spike, usually mid-center, that's then causing you to have that same negative mindset, that's causing you to go in a fight or flight mode. And that's one of the main elements of, I think, anybody who's successful in life dealing with people, which is anybody in life who's successful has to deal with people, but at a high level, what they've learned how to do is not filter who they're around, but they can filter what they allow those people to
what their reactions are to those people.
Exactly. Infect them with their negative mindsets. And again, don't worry about what the other person meant to, you're somebody you know, love, and trust, and they happen to pass along their emotional baggage to you. It's your fault for not basically having built your moat wide enough that you could see them coming, that you knew that, okay, this person's probably going to share with me some gossip from some MSNBC or Fox News headline that's going to cause me to, feel very triggered, and it's going to cause me then to have a bad mindset, and I'm not going to end up having a very successful day because my mindset's going to be in this fight or flight mode. Instead, remove that, say, okay, I'm about to be around another person. This person usually has a gossipy type thing to pass along to me. I don't necessarily need to shut them down or be rude or be confrontational. I'm just going to monitor how I feel when I'm around them. And when you're doing that monitoring, look to see where you start to have a physical change in your emotional state. That's in a physical way, right? So where do you actually start to feel different? Is it your stomach? Is it, again, midsection? And so I researched this a long time ago for another book that Julie and I were going to write. And I was talking to an exercise physiologist and a doctor and all that. And they actually said what that literally is when you're feeling that fight or flight thing, there's some gland or some part of your body that's starting to produce the types of endorphins.
It's an actual chemical. Yeah.
It's an actual physiological reaction to I'll say it for the 10th time, but it's the fight or flight mechanism, which is misfiring because you don't need to be in either fight or flight around that person, but that's your ancient software that's kind of being triggered.
And
so
that's why you can't prevent that first feeling, is because it
exactly.
is baked into you. It's funny you mentioned that, because I was listening to the Raising Good Humans podcast that, because we're trying to raise a good human. And one of the child psychologists was talking about this very thing. And she calls it fight, flight, or freeze, because she talks about how you can literally, if you don't figure out how to manage it, like you've been describing, you can literally freeze up. And she was talking about kids will freeze up and do nothing. For adults, the form of that is procrastinating or not getting in front of it. And it's funny you mentioned, like, I know for you, that's where you feel it. You kind of feel it midsection. It's not the same for everyone. I remember, in music, we had this discussion where different people would have different reactions. I had a friend where she had like a nerve that would flare up in her neck, so it's not the same for everyone. But the key is to recognize, what is it for you? For you, it's your midsection. For somebody else, I know some people, when they get nervous or they get triggered, they start tapping. They have like a nervous foot tap or something like that. So what is it for you? And then what are you going to do about it?
Well, Jill, you get a tight muscle in your
I
shoulder.
do. The back of my neck starts to
Yeah,
kind of
you get
seize up.
this, I'll obviously help her massage that out sometimes, and it's as tight as a guitar string, and that's when when we're doing
That's
something.
where I hold my stress.
Yeah, but isn't that interesting though?
Yeah.
So she could instead, and this is something that happened we've been married for 34 years, so we know each other like each other's backs of our hands, but she now can prevent that from happening because she knows that her body's going to react to the added level of stress from her fight or flight that's kicking in. So now she can head that off the path. She doesn't have that problem anymore.
It takes practice though.
It does. It does take practice. And so if you don't, the two natural ways that people will use this information normally, or the three outcomes you have from the first time, is disbelief. And Tim and Julie must be woo-woo freaks, which we're definitely not. The second one is just going to be ignore it, because you're so addicted to the drama, and and everyone around. It's your world. It's your orbit. And the third outcome is that you actually are receiving the information in the way that it's intended, and you're going to want to do something about it. And so you're going to pursue the next step. And I promise you, the easiest thing, the hardest thing, and the easiest thing to do is when you're around something or somebody that causes you to start to feel anxious or nervous or just whatever adjective you want to use, that fight or flight gets kicked in. Just all you got to do is notice it. That's it. Just notice it. It's like if you have a negative thought that pops in your mind, don't empower it. Don't wonder where it came from. Don't think about anything else. Don't just let it. Oh, there you are. Oh, look at that negative thought. Oh, there it is. And all you got to do is almost observe it, almost like see it, acknowledge it, remove yourself from the negative thought. And then once you observe it, what happens is it just goes away. And the same thing happens when you're trying to expunge from your life the stresses that often come in as a normal part of life. You say, I was just around, Bob, and I'm feeling kind of anxious and nervous. It's probably because Bob, and your brain might start meandering in a different directions. Just say, well, that's interesting. Look at that strange behavior. And then it goes away. Now, where the easy part is once you actually catch that, and you're now consciously aware that you can put an into those emotional spirals that you have from thoughts or from just interactions with people or whatever. Once you become consciously aware of that, then what happens is you start doing it more and more. And then the next level beyond that are those things don't even really enter into your mind anymore. Your brain, the first process is, I don't like the way I feel when I'm around this person, or I'm experiencing these types of repetitive emotions. The second thing is acknowledging them without thinking about them or analyzing them. And once you acknowledge them without thinking about or analyzing them, then you'll start noticing that they start melting away. Not just like goes away like this, but they start melting away, and the influence they have on you and how you feel after they've melted away, you'll notice that you feel much more positive and back in control. Dare I say, you're a little bit empowered, because you now know you have control of how you're going to react to those particular negative inputs. And then after you've practiced this for a long period of time, if you slip occasionally, who cares? That happens. But after you've practiced this for a long period of time, then what happens is those negative inputs that maybe 6 months before, 90 days before, were derailing to your essentially having a good day or life, really, they don't even enter into your orbit anymore, because you have now essentially, your brain is now able to instantaneously, in milliseconds, filter out those negative inputs, and they don't even have an effect on you. You don't even have to observe them anymore because they don't have any kind of hold or power on you. And that's really kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it is, but it does take work. Everything that we're talking about takes work and takes you being present and deploying some of these techniques. So I want to move on to another fairly simple technique, but again, one that you have to catch yourself and make yourself do. And that's number 3, gratitude over grumbling. So when you're feeling triggered or you're feeling stress or you can't believe you've got to talk to I had a coaching call with a client that she was doing a good job coaching herself. She said, I'm really grateful to have this business, but this is a very difficult seller for, reasons we don't need to go into. She had her gratitude on, right? So gratitude over grumbling. Her initial thing was, I want to complain about this on my coaching call because this client is just seller is just so difficult and so stressful. And she's right. He's got, some of that attitude, but she caught herself and she said, you know what? I pre-qualified him. I decided that his business was worth having, and I'm grateful for it. And that gave her a better outlook. So the tool is to have a moment of gratitude, whether that's writing down 3 things right now or saying, maybe, you and I do this with each other on walks. What are 3 things that you're grateful for? We do that with Zoe. And catch yourself. Maybe you've got to make those seller calls today and it's driving you crazy and you're getting a little, fidgety and stressful. Chill for 30 seconds and write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And I have a couple of links to a 5-minute journal and a 6-minute diary. There's lots of gratitude journals. There's some for kids. Sorry, I dropped my outline here. There's a lot of gratitude journals for kids, or maybe you just get a spiral notebook and start keeping that by your desk. The nice thing about a gratitude journal is you can also, after you've been doing it for a while, you look back through a month of 3 things per day of gratitude. And now you've got even more gratitude. And now you've broken that pattern of stress. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's funny you mentioned Zoe, Julie. Sometimes when she's grumbling, you said gratitude over grumbling. I know you were thinking of Zoe when you did that.
Perhaps.
Welcome to our preteen lives. In any event, so she will oftentimes resist because she knows what we're doing, saying 3 things that she's in gratitude for, because she will instantaneously come out of her grumbly mood when she is actually gratitude and shows overt gratitude. But sometimes she just wants to stay in a grumbly mood, which is probably true for a lot of you as well. You just want to stay in that grumbly, state of mind. And yeah,
Spread it around in the world.
exactly. Sure. Yeah, totally. And when she's like that and she's doesn't want to do the gratitude mindset thing that we're describing to you, and she wants to stay in a grumbly, Julie and I say, well, we don't want to be around you. We don't want your
opting out.
We don't want your bad attitude and we don't want your grumble. And then she'll go to her room, she'll go to read a book, but then, her buyback in is going to be saying 3 things that she's grateful for. And never is it that we asked her to come up with 3 things that she's grateful for. That's not on the list of things that she's grateful for. It's usually her dog and, things like that.
When she was younger, it was my pencil. I remember those because we used to have her draw them out too. So she dropped a little picture.
Yeah, but we've been doing this with her from the beginning, and now she knows that
she could write.
But it is so funny, honestly, because she knows that being overt gratitude towards something will instantly snap her out of her bad mood. But I guess almost 12-year-olds like to be in bad moods occasionally. Who knew? All right.
Right. Okay.
So the next point number 4, stop the analysis paralysis.
That's right. Thinking will not solve your stress. Action will. And it's really hard when you're stuck and you're thinking about, you're putting it through the grinder and you keep on, remember what we talked about at the top of the podcast, repetitive thoughts, 6,000 thoughts per day. Some of them are repetitive. Many of them are negative. So continuing to be in analysis paralysis does not get you anywhere. How do you break that? You do one action. You just take one action at a time. That could be one follow-up call. Maybe you've got 10 sellers and you haven't talked to any of them in 2 weeks because you're not in our coaching program. Otherwise, you'd know better. But let's just say that that's you and you're dreading it and you've been thinking about it all day and it's giving you so much stress because you've got 10 of them to call. Pick up the phone and just make one call. Break the ice. Oftentimes, I'll have our coaching clients that are learning how to say prospect expireds and they're worried about it and they're analyzing it and they're going through the scripts. Well, don't start with an expired. Start with somebody in your center of influence who's going to just be really thrilled to hear from you. Break the ice of the call.
Actually, that's a really good point. So as you guys know, starting last week or week before, I reluctantly, and now I have to say I'm really glad I decided to start coaching agents again. I had retired from that about 2 years ago. And I wanted to take on, and I have 10 elite coaching clients. And so what Julie's saying right now, and all of them are coming to us with successful businesses. They're all wanting to go to the next level, have better systems in place, produce more consistent cash flow. A lot of them are, I think, emotionally mature enough and have enough business sense that they want to put systems in place to actually start building and accumulating wealth, those types of things. But one of the first things, obviously, that we have to work on is consistency of lead generation. And every single one of them, with the exception of one, I think is going to be going to have so much opportunity in just their centers of influence and past clients. I asked one of them that they routinely do like 60 or 70 transactions per year. And their homework from one call to the next was really break down the real origin story of all those leads. And it was so funny. Originally, when I asked them that, they said, well, so-and-so, this came from Facebook, this came from this came from direct mail, this came from this, da, 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 da. And I knew that wasn't true because, I've been doing this for a long time, and this is what their initial response was. And this is coming from all these different sources. And so I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go and I want you to actually do real homework and find out where all those leads originally came from. And every single one of their closed transactions was a center of influence and past client lead that the lead itself contacted them through Facebook or through Instagram. So in other words, our neighbor comes over and says, hey, Tim and Julie, I noticed you guys have a new roof. I need to put a new roof on my house. Who am I going to use? And Julie says, well, we use Bob's Roofing. And I don't have his phone number right now, but then the neighbor goes back and the neighbor goes online, Bob's Roofing. And then they come up with their Bob's Roofing Facebook page, and then they message them through Facebook. What Bob might think is, well, that lead came through Facebook. Well, the real source of the lead was a happy past client, which would have been us referring the person. And so when you really cut through the Mickey Mouse and BS and you go through where your sources of leads are coming from, almost always they're going to be centers of influence and past clients. Why am I telling you that? I do have room in my schedule for probably 2 additional elite clients. So if you're interested in really taking your business and your personal life to the next level, and Julie and I are not just doing real estate coaching and training with our elite program. Between the two of us, we're only going to have a handful of clients. And these are going to be coaching clients that are going to have obviously high-level coaching and training about sales skills, business organizations, all things real estate. But we're also going to be coaching and training them on health. We're also going to be coaching and training them on building financial security, all the most important 5 areas of life things. We're not just going to say, start going to the gym. We're going to help you put an exercise plan together that goes hand in glove with an actual plan with regards to your health. Some of our clients were suggesting they go see doctors about checking their hormones. Others were sending them in the direction of doing other things health-wise. So everyone has a very high level, very detailed plan on how to really make all aspects of their life move together in conjunction. Because if you just have, let's just say we get you your real estate business really operating at a high level, but you've not got the greatest health, or you got terrible relationships with your family, or all these other things, where does that leave you? It leaves you with a lot of money with nobody to share it with, right? Or it leaves you with a lot of money and you don't have longevity in your life to really appreciate it and enjoy it. Well, that's no good. This is the reason that our elite coaching program is really something that I'm really thoroughly enjoying. All of my calls, I've only had a couple with some of them so far, have been really rewarding. And all of them to a new client, all of them have been saying to me, this is what we've been hoping you guys would come out with, right? We didn't want to necessarily learn new skills learn new scripts and all the rest of it. We know that we could improve in all those areas, but we wanted a holistic approach to really getting our acts together in our lives. If this resonates with you, and if you are really ready to go to the next level, not just in your real estate business, but all aspects of your life, do consider texting me directly at 512-758-0206, 512-758-0206, and send me a little information about yourself. And we'll talk to see if I'm a good fit, or maybe if Julie's a good fit for you, and whether or not you're a good fit for us too. I had probably 30, maybe 35 people that expressed interest in being in our schedules. And like I said, we're being very particular. A lot of them just weren't at the points in their careers where it made sense for them to invest having Julie and I as a coach. So for those agents, we had them, they're being coached by one of our other real estate coaches, one of our Harris certified coaches. But for those of you who are really ready for the next level, you're tired of getting ready to get started, you're tired of procrastinating, you really want the answer that's going to solve 90% of your problems with regards to building wealth, you maybe don't want to have to ever think about what's my plan to make it so one day I don't have to necessarily worry about selling real estate, or how can I actually cut through all the BS about what it's truly going to take to get my body and my mindset in the highest levels. Look, I'm not saying Julie and I have all the answers, but I do know that we know the people that do. So for example, when it comes to health stuff, I'm not an exercise physiologist. I'm not a doctor, but I know people who are, and I'm going to connect you with those people. And I'm going to help you, and I'm going to hold you accountable to getting those things done. That's what I'm looking for my elite coaching clients, people that are truly ready to improve all areas of their lives. So if that's you, text me directly at 512-758-0206. Julie, let's get to one more point, and then I want to remind all of you guys, there's a whole bunch of points we're not getting to, and these points are available to you at our newsletter, harrisrealestatedaily.com. Go ahead, Jules.
All right, so the next one is speak success into existence. We've been talking a lot about what to say to other people and how to manage your own emotions, but what about the things that you're saying to yourself? Those words matter too. So I'm going to give you two of my favorite self-affirmations or sayings that I use for myself, and I also coach our coaching clients to adopt this because they're very powerful. The first one is, I'm a doer. I do things now. I get things done. That's the anti-procrastination affirmation. You say that 10 times, there's no way that you're going to stay sitting still or not getting out of bed or whatever you're procrastinating or not calling those sellers you need to talk to. I'm a doer. I do things now. I get things done. That's owning your own action and watching yourself talk. I'm a doer. I do things now. I get things done. I say it a lot. Okay. The other one is, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. That is getting rid of the blaming of anyone or anything else. It's not the market. It's not your broker. It's not where you live. It's not who's president. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. I do have control. Remember at the top of this podcast, we're talking about a lot of your stress comes from feeling out of control, comes from uncertainty. So stop the uncertainty by taking control. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. You do have control. Tim talked to you in the first 5 or 10 minutes about controlling your schedule so that no matter what happens today, you have at least proactively generated new business for yourself. You've got new opportunities. You've got new appointments. Maybe one of your 5 sellers calls this afternoon and says, you know what? I don't really want to sell my house anymore. We've decided to keep it. Okay. Well, if you hadn't done your proactive lead generation in the morning, keeping you in control, creating new business, you're going to be a lot more angry and frustrated and disappointed and stuck when a seller says, I don't want to sell with you anymore, or I don't want to sell at all anymore, versus, okay, that's fine, because when you generate, you don't have to tolerate those feelings of being out of control all the time. It's getting you back into that control. And that comes from, if it's meant to be, it's up to me.
That's very good. So, all right. So
more points in the newsletter.
We're leaving off at point number 7. So point number 7, point number 8. Let me see if there's any of these that I really want to.
You covered number one of 6. Them about media-free morning.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, so guys, listen, you want these notes. Trust me, these are fantastic. Hopefully you guys like this type of material too, because Julie, as well as Julie and I, we actually use all of these points ourselves in our own life and our own marriage. And you know, it's interesting too, the more, even people that Julie and I know, or blessed to know, a lot of people that are far more financially well off than we are, hundreds of millions. We know people that are billionaires, and you would think that at some point, after you've accumulated enough wealth and have enough success, that your mindset doesn't continue to be a omnipresent, you have to be aware of it, but it's 100% true. And you want proof of it? Look how some very famous billionaires act publicly. They
still get triggered.
They get triggered. They act like complete jackholes, don't they? And so the mindset thing is a challenge that all of us have. So it's kind of fun to realize that even though you might feel like you're at the top of your game mindset wise, if you are feeling a little bit, disassociated with the person that you were hoping you would become, give yourself a little bit of grace. Give yourself a little bit of time and realize that it's just part of the human condition. And that's pretty much it. So guys, listen, please do like and subscribe and continue to listen to this podcast. It is our passion, if there is such a thing, and for work. This is the one thing that Julie and I are passionate about doing, and to continue to provide you guys this high-level coaching and training. I should say just training. This is not coaching. Coaching is something completely different. So do like and subscribe and share our podcast with others. We certainly appreciate it. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, and we'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.